some cowboy out of Texas, but he was making westerns, and I was like, all right, I'm in. Let me hear it.
I was on King K's. I don't know if you caught it. I was either yesterday they posted the video, but I was on it a couple of weeks ago talking about stuff, and the video finally got posted yesterday.
Oh, nice. I'll check it out.
Because he's all time doing like video reviews. Like I finally watched Name a movie that's so popular, but you know me, I dig out the obscure stuff, and I say, hey, have you ever seen Razorback? And he's all like, what?
Well, yeah, I saw that you posted the Razorback. So you just watched it again. I haven't seen Razorback. I was gonna ask you if you watched Boar yet.
Boar is pretty good. That's the one that's got what's his name? Chop Top, Bill Moseley in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that. That one's really good.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job with that. But I haven't seen Razorback. That's the one from the 70s, right?
80s, and it was Macaulay's. I can't pronounce his name. The dude who did Highlander afterwards. It was his first film.
And how was it? Was it an Australian film or?
It was typical exploitation, but it was brilliant because it was that time when drive-in owners were trying to pull like whatever they could get, anywhere they could get it, to fill in between big releases in the States. That's how we had exploitation. That's how we got all the good kung fu films there for a while. If it wasn't for, mom and pop grindhouses and drive-ins, we never would have seen any of that stuff.
Yeah, no, and it's always great to go back now, especially now that's more readily available. And with was it Shout Factory pulling Vinegar Syndrome, a bunch of them pulling out more and more. I saw Grizzly 2 is coming. I think you posted it, didn't you? Grizzly 2 was coming out.
Oh yeah, Grizzly 2. Yeah, I've been bugging Faye about that. I'm like, hey, we need it. Show it with the original, and I'll be there.
I am definitely up for that. Absolutely. And I think she was into it too. So that would be awesome. I have to watch Grizzly. I don't think I've ever seen it. I know it, but now I'm all into like George Clooney, Laura Dern movie.
Well, it's funny because I've seen the work prints for years and years and years. Like when you can pop on iOffer and get like a bootleg disc, yeah, you could watch the original work print, and it's like, oh, this movie would be so great to see finished. And now it is.
Yeah, that's I got to tell you, like I said, more and more stuff popping out. Like it's so weird. Doesn't it feel like cons when we've talked about this before? I know, but like when conventions like had these hidden gems away, and now like we're just getting them right out and Blu-ray and DVD. Like it's just such an amazing time.
Go to a film convention, get a couple bootleg VHSs. That was the day, or in the back of the old film magazines.
Yes. Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Even Fango did that for a while.
I did that. I was telling my kids that because they were reading some of my comic books, and I was like, I pulled out some of the older ones and said, like, look at this, look what they used to have back in the day in the ads, and they couldn't believe it. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like,
X-ray specs, yeah. Especially when you can find the older ones that got the Atari ads in them. Those are my favorite.
Yes. Remember the Super Mario Brothers started popping up once Nintendo started coming out?
It was always a shame because like LJN had the best like one-pagers in the comic books. Crappy games, but best advertisement.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that brings me back. I want to touch down on all that stuff. Like, go back with my kids and just have them like look it over and stuff and be like, this is what comics were when we were a kid. Like Stan's Soapbox. I want them to read them all, You can probably find those online though.
Yeah, you can probably find them online, or you can get reprints pretty cheap. So.
Well, I'm surprised that like with everything you have, like with Twitter and everything else, like there's not like a blog post that just blogs those as like daily Stan Soapboxes. They did it for years. You gotta imagine.
Mm-hmm.
It's everywhere. I think that would like Marvel's kind of missing out by not doing that.
Well, Disney's in charge now, so what do you expect?
Yeah, that's for sure. In fact, actually, since now we're live, I have to kind of retract a little bit. I reviewed Mulan last night with Len, and although I did enjoy the movie, after finding out today, like I know a lot of it's rumors, I'm going to wait until it all comes out, but until it's actually verified, I cannot back that movie. So anybody who listens to my reviews, like as good of a movie it is, with all of this human rights issues and the Jaegers and everything else, like, read up on it because that kind of disturbed me big time, especially.
What film was this?
This was the new Mulan. Supposedly they filmed some of it at one of the camps in, was it Xi'an Yang, where they have all those Asian Muslim almost captives. They call them rehabilitation centers, but they're camps that they make them live in. And they're called the Jaegers, and they exploit them. They use them as slave labor, everything else. Like it's pretty rough right now what the government's doing to them, and it's all the communist government.
I just couldn't justify dropping $30 on it. I'm like, no, I'm good. And when you film in other countries, you're going to run into problems like that. I'm not justifying it. I'm just saying you're going to run into situations like that.
Absolutely. I mean, like my biggest problem with it is if you knew about it, because supposedly the rumors are right now that these people were working on the camps to provide for the movie. So like if with as big as it is in the news and stuff like that, if you were exploiting that, like Disney was exploiting that, then shame on them. But like I said, I'm gonna reserve the right now, like go back and say, listen, it was a good movie, but maybe do your homework before you spend the $30 on it.
Well, it's coming out for free in December on just Disney Plus.
True, very true. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't still justify it, but
very fair. Pirate the movie. No, I'm not gonna say that. Don't pirate the movie. But
hey, if it wasn't for Pirates Bay, I wouldn't have massed the collection that I have of some obscure titles. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, that's very fair. Yeah, Pirates Bay. Oh, forgot about them.
They're still there. Yo ho ho.
Somebody posted a picture the other day of LimeWire. Remember LimeWire?
I remember LimeWire when it was like FrostWire.
Oh my God, it was. I didn't even think about that.
I think FrostWire was before LimeWire. And there was something else before FrostWire.
I remember Kazaa for a while, but I think that was after.
Yeah.
It was in the mix there.
The whole Napster ordeal.
Yeah, no, it was, oh my God. Those were the days when it gets music and just hang out. You could do whatever.
It was one of the few times that South Park really had me laughing when they were parodying Napster.
Yes.
Now the super rich guy can't afford the G4 plane. Now he must get the G3.
How? I mean, are they still on the air? Is that still? Are they renewed?
They're still on. They're still on.
What? That's like
much cringe, but they're still on.
There's 22 years. That's insane. They made fun of everything.
Well, Venture Brothers were 17 years until they got the axe the other day.
Yes, a friend of mine was telling me about that. Actually, I want to talk to you about that real quick, but I want to introduce the show and say, welcome everybody to the Scene Snobs Podcast. It is live, of course, Tuesday nights, and I'm joined with me as my guest co-host for this week, Sasha, the Princess of Darkness. Thank you, Sasha, for being here.
Hey, no problem. Anytime you need a victim, I'm around.
Yeah, no, you're a friend of the show. You always help us out and take care of us. So I'm absolutely happy to have you on. Plus, you're always fun to talk to. Your plethora of knowledge that you have about pop culture and geek stuff is amazing. So I'm always learning a lot. So yeah, I'm glad you're on the show. And we were just talking about Venture Brothers, which was actually pretty big news today or yesterday when they canceled it. Yeah, you said it was 17 years. I think it was 17. Like 8 seasons.
2003 was the first episode.
Oh, that's crazy. So did they give any official reason for canceling it, or that was it? Like
well, this is the thing, because I've seen a lot of people put out like the petitions on petition.org as I roll my eyes to try to bring it back. But I think there was like a whole creative side to it too, where basically the creative team was like, hey, we've done this for 17 years. Where do we go from here? You know? And then, of course, I guess Cartoon Network kind of has their whole thing going on in the background with it as well.
Well, they, I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said he's been boycotting pretty much Adult Swim, just like an unofficial boycott. But since they kind of screwed with Metalocalypse, I guess, which was a very cool show back in the day. But I didn't realize that it ended on the cliffhanger, and then they just never brought it back. And then they were trolling the fans, I guess, for years. So
that's the thing, like Adult Swim to me hasn't been good since Toonami. I don't know if you remember the original Toonami or not, but with DBZ, all the old school anime, late night anime movies, great stuff.
I do remember the run. I didn't watch the anime. I was a fan of who was it? Alpha. Was it not Alpha? Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Sorry. As soon as I heard Aqua, I was like, all right, now I got it right. I was a fan of Aqua Teen.
Means on sometime. I know him. I'll
Who?
send him your way. Carrie Means, the voice of Frylock.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I'll see what I can do.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. You gotta come on too. Yeah, that's such a. Yeah, I mean that was such a funny show. I remember watching that way back in the day with my brother. You know, we were adults at the time, and I think like I was like 21, 22 or something like that. And like we were just.
I remember coming back from the bar. It was Aqua Teen Hunger Force, and I'm trying Dave Attell's Insomniac. So I'd watch Comedy Central and then flip over to watch more Aqua Teen.
Yes, that's right. I forgot. Like it started at like 11:30. That was whack when Cartoon Network was not Cartoon Network. Comedy Central was probably. I might even venture to say at its best, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They had some good.
I don't know. I felt Comedy Central was at its best with when they had the MST3K. Granted, I'm not a Mike backer. I'm Joel 100%, but Mike was on Comedy Central, so had to watch that.
Oh yeah, Joel was on Sci-Fi, wasn't he?
They were on Sci-Fi for a bit, and then when they switched over to Comedy Central, it went to Mike.
Damn, that was such a great show too. I have Pluto, the streaming service, and they have a channel dedicated to MST3K, and it just plays 24/7. And then the very next channel is just all riff tracks. So you get bored of one, you go right to the other.
Oh yeah, you're not missing much.
One of the funniest ones, riff tracks I saw was they did Miami Connection, and I just oh my god, I just was laughing the whole time. Like everything they said, I was just like, this is perfect. How this movie hasn't been on MST3K is beyond me. But yeah,
Pod People will forever be my favorite.
Which one?
Pod People.
No. They just showed that one not too long ago. I want to say a couple months ago. All right, so we're kind of going around. We were talking a little bit the other day, and I want to get into Transformers, you know, and where we're going from there. And we were also talking about Magneto. So it was the relationships between the Autobots and Decepticons, especially Megatron and Optimus Prime.
Mm-hmm.
And you compared them to the relationship between Magneto and Professor X. You know,
yeah, because in the beginning they started out as friends, and they were, at least in the comics by IDW, against the same empire that was overrunning all of Cybertron. And Megatron was the first true Decepticon to actually rebel when miners revolted when their jobs were being taken away. And so they decided to execute one of the people who started the revolt, and Megatron took out the guards.
Okay. So what now? So I'm not very familiar with like how the war on Cybertron, like you're saying, so it started when Megatron decided to revolt. And I remember saying that he was so it's almost kind of like a gladiator type of story, like, or Spartacus if you want to go that route.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the gladiatorial thing, because when he rebelled against the Senate, that's what they put him into, for gladiatorial entertainment for the Senate. So they took this mining equipment and made it a war machine. Bad idea.
Yeah, definitely. So now the Autobots we're always getting the perspective of the Autobots. And, you know, so the Autobots were basically, what were they? What kind of class?
They were the
police force.
Yep, for the Senate. But there was some disagreements with how the Senate was running things. Like there were certain protected Cybertronians where if they got arrested, they would send the guards out to free them, sometimes violently. And Optimus was kind of against that. In fact, that's how he lost his first squad, and he started to rebel against the Senate himself, but not as violently as Megatron was.
Okay, so how long did this last before like we get to where the cartoon and the movies pick up where they're on Earth?
I'd say, because you got to figure, like, when they're on Earth, it's millions and millions of years after the fall of Cybertron. And you would say the war for Cybertron was at least, and again, I'm not sure on the numbers, but if I asked my kid, he'd probably tell me 10,000 years.
All right, so, and all right, so I'm very interested in this, and especially it mirrors a lot of what's going on in the world today. And we were kind of touching down on that. But the relationship, so if they started out as brothers in arms, like did they ever fight together in the sense of against the Senate, like you said, when Optimus sort of turned on the
Yes.
Senate?
When basically they started out, they did fight together and work together. In fact, one of my favorite scenes in the comics is when Megatron is in prison for all of his riots and everything else. Optimus is quoting a speech that he wrote to the Senate as to basically like, hey, to who does your power serve? Who gave you this power, and how can we get rid of you? And this was this whole big speech that Megatron came up. You know, who do you serve really? Are you serving the people, or are you serving yourself? You know, how did you come to power and why? And how do we get rid of you?
All right, so at what point? So did Megatron ever win at any point and take over, or like I'm trying to?
The Senate did collapse, only because of Megatron's more violent tactics. I always feel that he was forced into violence, in my opinion.
Okay.
Because again, here you are taking a peaceful miner who started out as a poet and a miner. Now you put him into gladiatorial combat and train him to kill. And now you have a guerrilla, a rebel, and the worst type of thing out there. You created your own monster, essentially.
So, because I'm trying to get to the point where, like we know with Professor X, I'm a little more familiar with that, like Professor X and Magneto, where it kind of mirrors, where kind of how the same story, and that we know, like Magneto he does become the villain at that point. Like, yeah, he is kind of pushed to it, and he's kind of born in it, really, because once he, if you go back to his days with the, during Nazi Germany and such, he's kind of born into that type of life. With Megatron, when did he ultimately become the villain, or have to take that moniker?
It's interesting because some people see it differently. I see it when he first stood up and executed the guards that were trying to execute the first rebeller. Mm-hmm. Some people say it's after he went to prison and met other Decepticons like himself, like Rumble and Frenzy and things of that nature. In fact, Rumble and Frenzy are the reason he escaped.
Okay, so he gets this faction together after he escapes, and they're going after the Senate, and then you have you
have Optimus going after the Senate due to the fact of they feel that they're above the law, that they can't be touched, and those that are around them can't be touched. Optimus tries to talk it out. Megatron's more of let's smash.
Mm-hmm. So how did that lead to odds with, because ultimately they did take it down together, so how did it lead to odds of them being against
the whole thing is then Megatron came into power because he took down the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And it was his violent hostility that pretty much eliminated all of them. And as a result, Optimus is like, how is this any better?
Okay, so Megatron took over, and then Optimus, or it was Optimus and Megatron kind of leading things, and then they just became at odds with how they wanted to run.
Okay. They kind of became at odds with each other because Megatron's big thing, even on his toy card back in the day, peace through tyranny.
All right, yeah. Sounds like the Brotherhood type of way of doing things, and I keep bringing up the sort of the similarities of Professor X and Charles Xavier, just in case anybody who's listening isn't really familiar with the Transformers comic story. At least they kind of probably have a working idea, even if it's just through the movies, of how X-Men works. But for you, when you're reading these books, what's the most powerful thing that you take away from it? Because you sent me some stuff and I read it, but I want to get it from you.
I think it's interesting because I've always enjoyed Megatron as a character. The villain is always the more interesting because you always have the hero that's always upright, truth, justice, whatever way. And then you have the villain who has his own complicated reasons. And I always like that whole Megatron becomes an Autobot. Mm-hmm. And people are like, what and why? And he's like, look, I finally got what I want, but I became a monster in the process.
Yeah.
And to me, that storyline blew me away because it's like, wow, But he knew that was the only way to push to get what he wanted, and now there's regret.
And where did that lead off to? Because I did read the speech and where he goes from, and he's kind of having it out. But where
It's still up in the air. He did turn back to the Decepticon ways later on.
Mhm.
That line kind of fizzled out, and then the new line got started, and it's kind of like, I want to know why he went back to the Decepticon way, honestly.
So if we, okay, so that's still going on then, or it's been continued with it. I remember you saying that.
It has been soft rebooted for new audiences, because you got to figure with Transformers, they try to do G1,
Mhm.
then they did G2, then they're like, okay, let's reboot it. Then they did a whole aligned continuity where they tried to make sense out of every continuity out there, which, from comic books is never going to work. So you can have 20 different continuities out there. And now they've kind of started fresh outside of the aligned continuity.
Okay. So now with that, like, since they're soft rebooting, are they still keeping the same storylines of like the history of it?
Yes. There's always a Senate. There's always a rebellion. You always have the Decepticons who kind of take over, and the Autobots are like, hey, yeah, we see your point, but you guys kind of went a little too far.
Okay.
A lot too far.
True. Well, now, why do you think they didn't really dive too much into this in like the animated series or the movies?
Well, you got to understand with the animated series existed as to sell toys first, the original animated series. And you got to figure Hasbro wasn't too worried about story continuity out there. I mean, the toys came from 3 separate Japanese toy lines. You had stuff from Takara like Microman, Machine Robo, and a couple others that were all kind of mixed together from different toy lines from different Japanese companies. That's why, if you notice, a lot of the toys are very different in scale because they're not the same toy line. In fact, Jetfire was actually from Robotech. And that's why you could not get the Veritech fighter in the Robotech line back in the 80s, because the transforming Veritech fighter was in Transformers.
Okay. Well, so Transformers was a Japanese property. Was it a comic book at that time, or did they make it?
Like I said, it was several different lines of toys from Diaclone, Takara, Microman, Micro Change. None of them had a shared continuity. There was no comics. It was just like a play feature. And then basically Hasbro cherry picked these toys because, hey, we just buy the molds, we make our own toys with our own branding, but we need a story to sell them.
Yeah. All right. So when did it start to take fold that, because there's been multiple animated series since then. I think they just came out with a new one recently.
Yeah, that one's great.
Okay, good. So it follows pretty closely, I'm guessing, with the storyline?
It picks up after the Senate has been thrown, which is unfortunate. I would love to see the 2 warring factions fighting together and then the splintering off.
Yeah, that's fair. So it doesn't take place on Earth at all, so that's good.
Not yet. Right now they're in the Siege, which takes place on Cybertron. Earthrise is supposed to come up next for a series on Netflix, and then Kingdom is after that, which kind of dips into the whole Beast Wars mythology.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the Beast Wars. Another way to sell toys, but I'm sure they'll incorporate it properly. I do, yeah. So I never really knew this. I never really knew this full background. Like I always knew like the Autobots and the Decepticons were always warring faction, but especially to hear this about Megatron and kind of how his character is a sympathetic character, really. So.
Oh yeah, because he was fighting for his people, and it just kind of blew up from there.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that thing what they say about power.
Ultimate power. Perhaps ultimate. Absolute. Oh no, absolute power. Perhaps absolutely.
Absolutely.
Not ultimate power. I'm off my game. But
I mean, how can you have peace through tyranny?
It's very true. Although some would say, I'm not saying I agree with this, but some would say that's the ultimate government that works as a benevolent dictatorship. I have read that in the past, but that does not mean I agree with it. I don't want it because benevolent dictatorship ultimately leads to tyranny, like you said.
Yep.
But I wanted to throw that out there. I don't know why. So, all right. So we're getting into, I want to kind of go into the comparisons of the relationships between, so the way we got into it a little bit, we were talking about Elvis at the time. No, I don't want to.
What were we talking about at the time? I'm sorry.
When we got into the conversation, we were talking about Elvis and that article that you put out about it, and that's what led us down the rabbit hole of talking about X-Men and Transformers, which I really dug.
My brains are a bunch of squirrels at a rave, so we can start at one topic and end at some sort of oddball topic by the end of the time we're done with it. So.
No, I liked how you said that it mirrors, society, and it's very reminiscent. Like, I liked your take on it and what you were saying with Megatron, how Megatron is really not the villain. He took on something that he was forced to take onto it. I mean, if you're born in slavery, like, not even born in slavery, like, but you're forced into slavery, but you were a minor beforehand, and that was basically slave labor as it was in Cybertron. It led him to have to revolt to free his people. And I like that, especially.
And Magneto was the same way. He had to revolt. He only saw the worst of humanity. And he's like, hey, how are they going to treat us that are the new humanity?
So why do you think that these villains, which, for lack of a better term, because that's what they're most popularly known as, are still considered to be the villain? How come when most people look at them, they're saying, okay, Magneto's the bad guy, Megatron's the bad guy?
The road to hell is often paved in good intentions. Megatron's intent was to overthrow the Senate and bring peace to Cybertron. In an effed up way, he kind of did. Granted, he ultimately destroyed it, hence why the Autobots had to escape. But he did bring peace.
That's true. I wish that and it'd be nice to elaborate on it more. Like, a lot of people, well, not elaborate, but people pick up on it a little bit more. But it amazes me. Like, Darth Vader, to me, Darth Vader is a bad guy. Darth Vader's always been a bad guy. Yes, he came back, but then, but he was a bad guy. There's no real sympathy. He ultimately chose to do what he was doing. These are the villains that were forced into it, and I think that that needs. I think they need their own stories put out there more in the forefront. Not like a Transformers story, but like a Megatron, show or comic book of like all the things that you're telling me.
And there's been comics like that. There's been one shots on singular characters from the mythos. Like Nightbeat even got one. It was very Maltese, Falcon-esque type story for Nightbeat, which was kind of cool because he was kind of like the cop detective of the Autobots.
Oh, nice! I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. So we were getting into, and so like for this, because they are the villains, and again, I want to. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, why are they like the number one villain? Why do you think that they can't flip it? Like, I would love to see, maybe not the one shots, but like, let's see a comic series from the point of view of the Decepticons. Like, not just like shows up, and I'm talking about a full comic series or a full TV show or something that says this is the Decepticons and they're not the bad guys.
At the end of the day, Hasbro owns it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with Hasbro's rules and regulations with some things. If you ever want an interesting viewpoint of how Hasbro's brain works when it comes to properties, look up the story behind Night Trap and all the stuff that the director tried to put into this game before it ultimately went to Sega through Hasbro, and based on their demands, how kind of crippled he was to do anything with this story. Because Hasbro, at the end of the day, their big thing is we don't want you to be able to emulate the violence. We also don't want you to relate with the bad guy. Think about it. You're selling to kids, You don't want to get too deep of a story. You don't want to have sympathy for this tyrant, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess it's just, for me, it's like doing the comparison with the X-Men. So jumping over to the Magneto side of things, I guess with Hasbro, and I want to talk to you a little bit more about Night Trap in just a second, because I'm not too familiar with it, but I want to know more about it. When it comes to, like, let's say Magneto. So Magneto is still ultimately the bad guy, but time and time again in the movies and in the comic books and in the cartoon even, he was proven right. Like, over and over and over again. Like, how many times does Professor X have to be beaten down, or his team, or or just have a successful mission where they win and then still they lose, like because they're coming out as the bad guys in society. Like, for me, like you said, Hasbro holds back that, but I don't think Marvel ever did. So why would Marvel still? I feel like Marvel should let Magneto win. Does that make sense?
Well, the thing of it is even in the comics, he kind of did in some of the older ones. Because keep in mind, even Stan Lee at the inception of Magneto said he is not a villain. He is an extremist.
Oh, okay, that's fair. So yeah, I mean, he basically wanted to annihilate, yeah, which is very funny to me considering he comes from the Nazis. Like, I mean, it's not funny, but ironic, I should say.
Yes. And the best way I can describe it is when it comes to villains, let's say there was something that was going to happen to our world, and if we didn't harvest and take over another world, we would die as a species. Now, let's say there's microbes that are eventually going to use whatever resources are on that planet. Do we still have the right to take that away?
Yeah, is it just a matter?
And that's how I kind of look at it. Like with Megatron, to us, we're just flesh bags, microbes.
Yeah, I guess that's true. They come to Earth and they just want to take it over, and yeah, why not? If you're the more dominant species. I mean, he's already taken over his own planet, essentially. But I do, hopefully Megatron will get a nice ending eventually. Something peaceful for himself.
Well, in the comics, he did take over the X Academy for a while when Professor X was dead for the 20th million time. So.
Yeah. Dude, they killed him off so many times. Damn it.
Oh,
yeah. So I want to go back a little bit because you talked about a video game called Night Trap, and I've never heard of that. And that sounds pretty interesting.
All right. So back in the day, you had the Sega Genesis.
Yep.
Eventually, they made the Sega CD. There was a game called Night Trap, and it was a horror game that was basically based on security cameras, where you had to view each security camera and activate traps to get rid of the bad guys. Well, originally, before it came out on the Sega CD, they were pitching this game to Hasbro for like an interactive device at home for like a video game console that they eventually never did. And the guy initially wanted it to be ninjas. Ninjas in the house, throwing stars and attacking the people in the house. And you can only catch the ninjas and put them in traps if you catch them just in time. And the problem with that is they're like, no, we don't want violence that can be emulated by children. And we're sitting here like, even the director's like, well, wait, does everybody have throwing stars at home? What the heck? And we're like, yeah, no. We don't want villains or bad guys that can be emulated in one way or the other. And then he's like, okay, well, how about we make them vampires? They can be fast, quick, da. We're like, yeah, let's not make them vampires. They can be vampire-like, but let's make them slow, ignorant, stupid, things of that nature, where nobody's rooting for the vampires. And the game eventually got crippled because of all of that. And the only reason Night Trap has a place in history is because when the government got involved with trying to rate video games, Night Trap's box art came up because it was kind of scandalous at the time, even though the game was very blasé, so to speak.
Well, that's pretty crazy. All right, so an interactive game. So it wasn't a computer game, it was for the Sega CD?
Well, it came out on the Sega CD, but was supposed to be for this exclusive thing called the Hasbro Interactive that was supposed to come out in the early 90s, but never did.
Never even knew Hasbro was getting into video games, which they never did, but
Yep.
No, I never heard anything about that. That's nuts.
And it was so funny because they dropped all this money in the Night Trap after they completely crippled the director and the writer and everything else, and then didn't put it out on their system. And then Sega was like, well, hey, there's existing games from Hasbro that nobody picked up. Let's just buy them and put them on disc so there's something on the system when it comes out. And who knows, it would cause a stir with the government in trying to rate games. Because most people blame Mortal Kombat for that, but Mortal Kombat came later.
Oh, so Sega CD was beforehand.
Yes.
I didn't know that either. I thought it was. I remember a Sega CD, like that's familiar to me, just hearing it, but I've never seen it. I don't remember it too well.
If you want new information on that, or like when like video games in general, like they even touched on the Night Trap thing. Netflix has got a whole new documentary series, like 3 episodes called High Score. Check it out.
Oh, sweet! I definitely will. My kid would love that. He's all into video games now, and like we've kind of been playing the old ones and revisiting those. So I think he'd really be into that show. So I will definitely check that out, and then we will have to talk about it. I want to switch gears a little bit though, because we were talking the other day about Harry Potter. It kind of came up, and
Well, we can do a segue from Harry Potter from video games.
okay, I'm in.
All right, so your kids are into video games. Are they Minecraft kids yet?
They are. Well, one is. The other one's too young. He doesn't really even know Minecraft is.
All I gotta say is, thank goodness Microsoft now owns Minecraft. Because if you look at what Notch, the original founder and creator of Minecraft, has been saying online, yeah, I'm glad it's in somebody else's hand. They're making money off of it.
Yeah, and I was. That's so I don't know much about Minecraft other than like what my kid shows me, and he runs around building stuff, and it looks fun, but I didn't even know Microsoft owned it. That's how out of tune I am with video games. Like I need to just get into it. But he was, he's also into the Harry Potter. We were talking about that, and and that's kind of the question I wanted to ask you, because I know I've read kind of the controversy from what's her name, J.K. Rowling. Mm-hmm. I don't care about Harry Potter. I never got into it. I think I was too old, and I kind of missed that where I didn't read it. I saw the movies, but it was kind of like, whatever.
Same, but I had a little brother that was 7 years younger than me. And on top of that, I had roommates that constantly wanted to go see the movies. And even then, before controversy stirred, I had questions. Because like I was explaining to you, look at the trolls from Gringotts. Complete anti-Semitic stereotypes. Crowded with money, big noses, warts. That's what's on display there.
Well, so for me, I guess what I was wondering is like, so I guess does she still make the money off of that, or is that? I mean, I guess
yes, she still owns it.
Oh Jesus! I would have thought the movies.
She's still pumping. She still gets royalties off the movies, of course. She got paid for the script every time it's shown, every time it's aired.
Yeah.
She's gotten money off the amusement parks. It's the money machine for her, because let's face it, if she writes anything else, she's going to fail at it. And after a friend had slipped me Silkworm, I am kind of glad that she's not going anywhere with her writing outside of Harry Potter, because Silkworm was horrible. Trans character, implied rape, making fun of Adam's apples and trans appearances. And this is in her handwriting. Not only that, but in a pseudonym that she uses from one of the creators of conversion therapy.
Oh, Jesus. That's ridiculous. And I saw a lot of the stars and other filmmakers of it kind of came out against her and was like, yeah, this is ridiculous. And I mean,
and what gets me, and this is the thing that I don't get, but if you read about her history, she was abused, she was sexually assaulted, she was marginalized and everything else. Why would you turn around and do the same to other people?
I agree. And I don't know. I've never really gotten into, I've never gotten into Harry Potter, so I never really cared much for her. With the kids getting into it, like, whatever, run around with your wands. I never, again, when I watch them, I'm just not.
Well, this is what I think is interesting, since you've watched the movies. What's that head wizard's name? Dumbledore.
Yeah.
Dumbledore, for example. Him being gay, does that change anything about the movie series for you?
Not at all. Is he gay? I didn't even know.
It was retconned after the fact. Well, after the fact by JK, when she was getting heat from the LGBT community. So she's like, oh, Dumbledore's gay. Basically tokenization to say, hey, this character, even though him being gay is never brought up once in the books, is now suddenly gay, to kind of say, hey, I'm one of you, it's cool.
Yeah, so I kind of got that from a lot of our conversations I saw on Twitter and things like that. Just kind of how she plays it. I don't know. She never really impressed me whenever I would hear her in interviews. Like, she just was always kind of like, all right, a lot of people might get mad. I don't really care, but she always seemed like a one-trick pony. Like, okay, you have Harry Potter, and all you're doing is continuing Harry Potter and whatever. I don't know anything else she wrote. I had heard the story of Harry Potter was like what she used to tell her kids before they go to bed, which I thought was a nice story. But I mean, it's the same story as William Goldman with Princess Bride, you know. But at least his kids named that.
But you know, it's like some of the characters in there, like Hermione, for example. She's not the main hero. She's not a main hero. She kind of does the boys' homeworks for them. You know, to me, it's like, okay, how can you be a women's right activist when you got a character like that?
Yeah, and I think I saw one the other day. I think it's the sixth one where she spends the movie kind of gushing over Ron.
Exactly.
You know, so and that never really fit like with everything I had seen just in the movies. And I could only go by the movies, not having read the books, but like she always seemed like she was kind of her own tough lace type, you know, like she wanted to be book smart. She wanted to, you know, be the best in her class and such, but which is fine. That's admirable for a kid, I guess. But
yeah,
you know, I was not like that, but whatever. But yeah, so I guess with Harry Potter, like, is it just, has she always been like this? I know the books, like you're saying, are problematic in a lot of its themes, but where do we blame for the movies? So with how the trolls look in the movies, which honestly I cannot picture them myself. I do know they exist and I know what you're talking about. So I know they're in there, but do we blame Warner Brothers for that, or did they just take that from the script?
Plain depiction from the book.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it would just kind of come straight from her. And I think my biggest question on that is, and I've had this conversation quite a bit lately, is when do we not blame, but like when do we shut out, or for lack of a better term, cancel an intellectual property because of the creator's views, or that step out? Like, when does that come into play? Because like there's a lot of, we can go back many years, many fandoms and stuff, and like find the creators have been problematic.
Well, like I've said to you, I am a descendant of Lovecraft.
Mm-hmm.
Dude's racist as fuck.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nobody's making a dime off of him anymore, aside from people that aren't related. Fine by me, because they've kind of reclaimed it. I don't know if you've seen Lovecraft Country. Thank God that's out there.
I have not. How is that? Is it a good show?
It's really good.
All right, I'll definitely check it out then, because I mean I love Jordan Peele and I wanted to see what he was going to do with it, and I've heard really good things. Rob from Behind the Box watches it. He talks very highly of it.
I'm not going to spoil it for you, but check it out.
Absolutely.
You will feel uncomfortable in more ways than one.
Yeah, I can imagine, especially so many themes. We're kind of like discussing that and like kind of the culture and how it's going today with the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, I've been no stranger on here.
When it comes to like when people should kind of ignore it, my philosophy of it is the creator still behaving this way, and are they somehow still profiting from it? Because I hate to say it, because with people in power, there's not a whole lot you can do to them. Only thing you can do is hit them by their social and their financial statements. That's the only thing they care about.
Yeah, I guess that's a really good point. I never even like kind of thought about it like that, because we were talking about what's his name, Harvey Weinstein, and just everything he did and the monster that he was, and a lot of like the filmmakers coming out and they're giving their portion of the profits to charities to help the needs of the movie and such.
Good old Kevin Smith, one of them.
I think he was like one of the first ones, yeah, and then Ben Affleck jumped on and a bunch of others. But for so many years, the fact that he could do this because he ruled Hollywood essentially, you know, always winning and such awards, all his movies. And I asked, do we shut out those movies because they were his? And that's a good point, like you said. I don't think he makes any money off of them anymore. He's
not now. They're basically, he's not making money. He's not profiting some way or somehow. You know, he's in a jail cell. Probably a better room than I have, but still.
Fair, yeah. Hopefully not, but
at the end of the day, you know, as long as they're not profiting and as long as they're not spewing their bile, I'm fine with it. It's kind of like my philosophy with Chick-fil-A. Grant, I don't like Chick-fil-A. When I found out that they were funding anti-LGBTQ stuff, conversion therapies, things of that nature, it stopped being a fast food restaurant to me. Because my philosophy of it is you may like a chicken sandwich, you may like a book or a movie, but where is that money ultimately going to? And who is it ultimately going to? And what is it funding? And if you can't answer those three questions, you need to think twice about it.
You know, that's a great question. And you know, I have to, you know, complete ignorance on my part. I didn't know that I mean, I knew it was a Christian company, and I mean, I think, you know, as us being friends on Facebook, my feelings about Christianity. But I did not know that they were conversion therapy, funding conversion therapy. That's disgusting. Well, there goes Chick-fil-A. Popeyes are there.
Well, you're not missing much. I would say if you want a good chicken sandwich, go to Waffle House. I haven't heard anything bad about them yet. So.
Very fair, very fair. Although I will say that the Popeyes chicken sandwich is good. I should probably, looking at me, I should probably just cut out all fast food. But I just need to find the problem with all fast food now, and then I'll be thin.
So did you hear about the situation with Earthworm Jim's creator?
No, what happened?
He's spewing the same stuff JK is.
Oh, jeez. Does he have anything like out now? Like,
they've got, it's the new Intellivision or whatever it is that's coming out. It's either the new Atari or the new Intellivision that's got an Earthworm Jim game on it. And he's got a couple of comics that, of course, he had to get kickstarted. But yeah, but he's been making a stink on, you know, Facebook and whatever.
I don't understand it. I mean, again, I kind of understand the widely Christian base being this way. I'm not saying that I condone it or agree with it in any way, shape, or form, but, you know, there's some...
Well, as I say, not all of them. If they're really taking the practicing and teachings into effect, they shouldn't be judging anybody.
100% agree. And I think that's my biggest problem with that base, is that it is just seems like, I mean, I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 12 years. Hence why I'm not Catholic anymore. But it just, everything I take, it's just like, I have no problem if you believe in God. I have no problem if you love Jesus or whatever. Yep. It's when you start spewing hate and hiding behind, well, these are the rules of the church, well, then your church is wrong. That's just always been my feelings on it.
If your belief makes you hate others, then you have the wrong belief.
100% agree. Couldn't have put it better. And yeah, so getting into that, and like with the Harry Potter thing, like I don't know how to take the kids out of it. All I can do is like promise to teach them and show them.
Well, I'm not saying take the kids out of it. I'm saying introduce them to information when the time's appropriate.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's kind of like with Minecraft. My kid didn't get into it until well after the Microsoft conversion. And I've told him, like, straight up, I'm like, hey, here's what's up with Notch. I get this is something you grow up with, but I want you to know, process that how you want. If he was into Harry Potter, I'd be like, hey, what do you think of these depictions from this, from that, from this, and this in the books, and her other books, and then her personal life? Do you really feel that's okay? You know. That's why I say if you want to get a Harry Potter book, buy it at Goodwill. Pay 50 cents for it. You get a diamond.
I love that idea. I didn't even think about that. Yes, if you want that stuff, go for it. Where you're cutting off the money. That's a great idea.
Get it secondhand.
And we were kind of talking about that too, like because we kind of all started down this path the other day with, like I said, the Elvis article. Again, Elvis is another one I really don't care about, and we know Elvis is Elvis, But I was thinking about like everything we talked about, the article in your post, and just kind of all the interactions, and I was wondering, and I wanted to get your feelings on this. Where does it? I guess when does it become not condonable, but when there's like people of a certain age, like you're never going to change them, or like, they're like screaming, "Oh, this is fake news," because they want to believe the pedophile.
My philosophy of it is, and this is how I've always been out there. I always step up and say, "Hey, X, Y, Z." One of your posts today, I think I did that because somebody dropped the word straight, and that grits my teeth so hard. And I immediately say, hey, hold up, pause. Let's not use the word straight. Let's use heterosexual, because when you use the word straight, you're implying that people that are not are crooked or bent. So let's use another word.
I'd be honest with you. I would never thought of it that way, but now I do, and that's why I'm glad we're talking.
And that's why I throw it out there. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm like, hey, here's the info. Here's why this is a problem. They can either take it and go with it and go, gee, I didn't think of it that way, or they can be a dick. You know, you got two choices in the world. You can accept what's been handed to you, or you can be an ass.
Yeah, I guess for me, I guess it's just seeing some of the interactions, especially like let's stick with the Elvis thing for just a few, because like I feel like the Harry Potter stuff is all out there on social media in the forefront. You know? So it's anybody who's ignorant to it, you can be like, listen, it's right there. I mean, the
Elvis stuff is right there.
Oh, I agree. I grew up reading that. Like, I agree with you.
Countless reports where he literally told, what was her name? The only wood that doesn't float, Natalie Wood. Haha. Yeah. I know, terrible, too soon. But anyways, Natalie Wood apparently had made moves on Elvis, and he's like, no, you're too old. And she was 18 at the time. 18.
Yeah, you're too old. And I've always heard about the Elvis slumber parties and things like that. Like, this is, and again, it's like the Michael Jackson thing too. And like, you always kind of heard the rumors. They're always out there. More and more, like, you hear these horror stories, and it's coming. I'm glad it's coming out more and more about Hollywood, you know, and how they do things. And, you know, I think the Jeffrey Epstein thing kind of led a floodgates of opening up of everything. But yeah,
Ron Jeremy, you know, him going to court, being in that adult industry, and him getting into so much trouble. It's about time, because he was conducting himself inappropriately in that format, and it was overlooked for so long because, oh, well, that's that industry. Not anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that it's all starting to come, like, again, out in the open and out in the forefront and things like that. I guess my feelings, and I don't know. All right, so like my dad is like a deacon. We haven't talked in a long time, but my dad is a deacon. He's Catholic deacon, whatever. And I always just looked at it as like, I could sit there and argue with him until I'm blue in the face. He's never going to listen to me, but I can sit there and argue with him until he's blue in the face about what I think is right versus what this church is teaching. But I finally said to myself, like, you know what? He's old. He's never going to change his mind. I'm just going to let him think what he's going to think. You know?
Change is always possible. And I always believe that. I hate to say it. You can change people if you want to. But you can't approach it in a headbutting kind of way. It's all about common ground. Mm-hmm. You got to find out where that anger comes from and why, and dig back and find that common ground, and you can fix it.
Yeah.
I know I've said when I've tried to educate people, there's some people who accept it and there's some people who walk away. That's fine. But if it's someone I run into regularly, you bet I'm going to try to find that common ground.
Yeah, I get that point. I mean, it's come off a little bit because it's social media. Never with me. Like, I mean, I get it. I understand. I think we have kind of the same head, especially you being from Pennsylvania, me being from Jersey. I think it's just that area, you know, like you kind of get that this is like, we're not going against you. We just want you to understand intensely how we feel about this because we feel so passionate.
Well, you don't want to put the intensity into it either. You know, yes, it's great that you feel that way, but the moment you put intensity into something, that's going to rouse somebody up.
Yeah, that's true.
You got to slide it in there. You got to slide that in there. You just got to put the information out there, let them nibble. What was it that they said on Cobra Kai the other day? If you got the right bait, eventually you'll get a nibble.
Yeah, that's very fair. You are getting into Cobra Kai, right? We were talking about that.
A little bit. But
I'm kind of segueing hard, but I wanted to see what you thought about it.
Well, the only thing I'm going to leave it at is, and when it comes to me, when it comes to educating other people, look how I conduct my web show. I could be like every other trans YouTuber and go, yay, I'm trans, look at me. No, I'm sitting around and talk about horror. I talk about sci-fi. I talk about a common ground. I'm not Sasha, the tranny. I'm Sasha, the girl who knows her horror shit. I'm the girl who knows her films and sci-fi. Because I approach it from a common ground.
The proper term is the Princess of Darkness.
Yes.
That is, and I love that, and I agree with you. And I always try to like come about with this with my shows too. Is like, not that I don't care. Like, it's not that I don't care that you are trans, or I don't care that somebody's black or somebody's gay or what. I do care because that's a part of who you are.
Right.
I guess it just never comes up because it's not your title. You know what I mean?
Now that's what I think is interesting, because my friends that know me personally be like, oh, you bring up the trans thing all the time. And as I jokingly say, even though it's a dark joke, I'm like, well, at least nobody will get away with that legality with saying, oh, well, I murdered her because she was trans. I didn't know she was trans. They will damn well know I'm trans.
Well, I think that's it's important. Like I said, like you come out and you say it, like, again, with the Black Lives Matter movement and everything that's coming out, I think it's so important that this information is getting out there, and that, you were one of the ones leading the forefront with your, not your web series, but like with your posts and your things like that. Like you are educating and putting it out there. And I have taken a lot from it. And I've learned a lot from it, I know. And again, an Irish Catholic boy from Jersey City, New Jersey would never grow up knowing this. We know the street, we know what this is, but we would never grow up understanding the gay, lesbian community, which was more prevalent growing up. Like, you heard about it more, but especially the trans community. So, I just try every day, trying to be more accepting and listen. And, I appreciate a lot of the stuff that you post because I learn a lot from it too.
So Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai. But thank you. That's all I want to say is thank you. It's a very long way. But Cobra Kai. So you're going back to the 80s. Well, not really the 80s, but Johnny is very 80s in the show. What do you think about it? How does it hold up?
Well, we were kind of touching on this earlier when we were talking about Megatron. Here's somebody pictured as the villain. You're now in his head.
Yeah.
You're now seeing his viewpoint. Why things went down the way that they did. Because what they say, there's 3 sides to every story? Side 1, side 2, and the truth.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
And I think it gives you kind of an interesting introspective, to the whole series, because he kind of starts out in a Miyagi kind of position because he's the maintenance man for the apartment building. He runs across the kid. Granted, it's not exactly the whole Miyagi, I care kind of situation. Oh, no. It's rough and nasty at first. I think he's called Menudo.
Yeah.
And then he sees the kid getting beat up and bullied, and Johnny does Johnny.
Yeah, I loved the whole, like, kind of how it mirrors the movies, but from Johnny's perspective, and yeah, I did love that too. And then him opening up Cobra Kai again, but it's very simple. Yeah, he's teaching no mercy, but he is more and more like, all right, like second guessing it throughout. I don't know where you're at, so I don't want to give anything away.
I'm all the way up waiting for season 3.
Okay, awesome. And I love that it's coming to Netflix. It's going to be fantastic.
His old sensei coming back was brilliant.
Yes. And did you see the trailer for season 3?
Not yet. I'm of the philosophy when it comes to like Netflix trailers that I want to avoid it. Okay. I mean, come on, look at the Stranger Things trailer. Big spoiler right there when you watch it.
I will give you, all right, I won't say anything then because I don't want to spoil anything for you. But you're going to get some characters back and it's going to be fun. But I also like the Daniel side of things too. Like, I think, because if you go back and you rewatch the movies, Daniel's kind of a dick. He, I'm not saying that getting all your guys and beating up on this kid is a good thing, but especially when you could have done it yourself, just by yourself. Like, but Daniel started this, and I
think what really made me side with Johnny was the whole Tommy thing.
Which one's Tommy? Is that
the one dying of cancer?
Oh, that's right. That was a great episode. I forgot about that. Oh, that was such a, because he was, and I guess that character, that actor, I think he actually had cancer. I think he's cancer free now, but they were just playing into it for the show. But yeah, that was such a humanizing thing of all those characters.
Especially for him to be one of the ones to bring up the original sensei and like, no. Don't do it like he did it. Do it your way.
Yeah, absolutely. To see them all talk about it and be like, yeah, that was just not the way it should have been. And the fact that everyone, basically his whole life kind of, is like kind of attached to that one tournament. Because you never see him again until now. So it's kind of like, how'd your whole life fall apart, dude? Come on. But
well, like Johnny, you can understand because his dad Well, his stepdad was total trash,
But so with the show, do you think that? Oh, one thing I do want to mention, anybody who hasn't watched it, Tommy does the last thing you see him in the episode is get zipped up in a body bag, which I thought was very funny considering he was the one saying put him in a body bag. But I do enjoy the show. I really like the nostalgic feel to it. I like the continuation and just kind of how both lives sort of mirror each other and how they're doing things. Or not mirror each other, but kind of like parallels going on.
Mirror's right, because when you sit down and think about it, Johnny's kind of at the beginning of LaRusso's story because he's not exactly wealthy. He's kind of living in a crappy place. He's the one who's always downed on, even though before he was the big karate champ. Mm-hmm. Whereas before, LaRusso was the poor kid, and now he's the well-known karate champ with all the car dealerships.
Yeah, that's fair. You're right. Actually, I never even thought about that. I need to rewatch, but you bring new perspectives. Thank you, Sasha. But
it's like The Last of Us I was telling you about. If you play that first game, it's an exact mirror of itself from beginning to end.
I still have not played it, but I do think about it often, and I have to get into it. I have to actually just sit down on my PS4 and get the game and play it. Right now, I'm currently playing the Spider-Man game, the last one that came out. So.
I want to pick that up. I really do. But part of me is like, I need to, when I'm working again, save money for the PS5 because I need miles much, much more.
Yeah, I know. I really want to play that. Like, once I heard that they were going to make that about him, I was like, yeah, I'm in, because this other game is amazing. I can't imagine what's
that cat launch title, whatever that one where you play as a little cat climbing all over the place in a unhumanized world.
No, I didn't see that.
Oh, you'll have to look up the trailer. I can't think of the name, but you play as a little tiny cat, and you're like parkouring all over this city, trying not to get caught by the robot people.
All right, I can check that out. That's going to be awesome. And that's coming out when? That's coming out soon, right?
It should be the end of the year.
Yeah, around Christmas time. That makes sense. Well, Sasha, I appreciate our conversation as always, and I thank you for coming on the show. We're about an hour in, and that's usually Tuesday night when everybody's kind of ready to roll out. But I appreciate you and Rob. I think you were commenting along with us. Thank you. I didn't read your comments, but appreciate you joining in too. But yeah, it is Skyline Week. I was going to talk to you about indie stuff as well, but we didn't really get into it. But we're going to have you back on the show to do that, especially in October, because horror movies will be coming up.
Oh, yes. Horror movies all day long. I still got to work on that Predator review series, but I'm kind of like, where do I start? And I know it's obvious, start in the beginning, but part of me really wants to get into AVP because those comics were near and dear to me as a kid.
I would start there then. If that's the case, why not?
It's kind of like, but I got to kind of intro the Predator. Maybe I'll do like a 15-second segue and then like, okay, let's talk about AVP.
Or you could, why don't you combine them? Why don't you do both? Like AVP or AVP, or Aliens and Predator.
Yeah. Well, I already did the whole Alien retrospective, so that's already been up for a couple years now.
Oh, then that would be a great segue. You do AVP and then go into Predator.
Okay.
That might be interesting. Well, I mean, listen, I don't want to tell you what to do. You know what you're doing.
Like I said, I'm just kind of stuck. It's like, where do I start? I got a good build up, but where do I start?
I'm anxious to hear it though, because I do love the Predator movies. But anyway, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate this. We're going to have you on again real soon, especially talking horror with Halloween coming up. As always, Sasha, the Princess of Darkness, make sure you are following her on social media. You just bring new light to everything, and now I'm going to have to go and watch the new Transformer movies. Or not movies, but the show.
It's brief. It's very brief, but be warned, there's 2 more parts coming.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'll definitely check it out. Everybody, if you're watching, please like the video and subscribe, and check out tomorrow. We go live. We have a very special guest on Behind the Box. Blaine Weaver is coming on to talk about his new movie, Getaway, which premieres this Friday. So until next time, thank you again, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.